think that, but I feel like men have a really difficult time with, and I don't know, I feel like men have a really great mutual respect for one another.
I've always been inspired by males' friendships as opposed to women's friendships. So I agree with you.
But I will say that when it comes to, and we've had to deal with this a little bit, when it comes to a male and a female working together, that there might be a lack of taking ownership in that relationship, or something's off, something maybe different. Like there's a hierarchy that lives in the mind somewhere that, I don't know. And so it's very crazy to when I'm looking at man-woman relationships, first and foremost, there are some men out there and there's some women out there that can immediately say, you know what, I was wrong.
Right.
It's not even worth it to go down this road.
Right.
And it's another thing that I actually really admire about Reina is she had told me at one point, she said, look, I respect and I value our friendship so much that if something were to ever happen, even if I knew it wasn't my fault,
right,
I would be like, you know what, I'm going to let this go.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like I wouldn't. Like, wait a minute. No, I know. I probably would actually. I'm kidding. I'm really kidding. I'd probably be like, okay, that didn't feel good, but I'm going to just get over this because I do value and I think that is a big part of taking ownership is you need to actually ask yourself another question and say, how valuable is this relationship to me?
Yes.
Because if it's not, then, you know what I mean? Like, go do you, boo, and see you later.
And it helps you put stuff in perspective, too. Like, how much am I really adding to this and what's being really given back to me?
Right.
Like, you may get your own question answered right with that little tidbit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, do I need to give this energy?
Yes.
Probably not.
Is it worth it for me? And, that's a question that just came up in a situation that I was in. And just to kind of go to say that there was a situation that was brought up to my attention that, people talk and things happen. It's like this really childish thing of, this person saying this about you, blah, 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 blah. And old Leah, was kind of flaring up a little bit, was like, I'm going to go check this bitch.
I was ready, just so y'all know.
And then,
where are we going?
Wisdom Leah, evolved Leah, grown up Leah was like, you know what? I'm not going to fan this fire. Yeah. I'm not going to add to it. Everybody's going to have an opinion of who I am.
But it's so hard because then that pride steps in and you're like,
yeah.
But I need to defend myself because you got
it wrong. Or you feel weak.
Yes.
So let's talk about that because feeling weak is a real deal thing in relationships.
Yes.
One place where I struggled always was if somebody were to kind of come up to me and be like, huh, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, you want to flinch at me? I'm going to flinch right back. Right. Even though I probably know I might get my ass kicked right now, I'm still going to flinch. I'm not going out without a fight.
I am not flinching. You better get real close.
You know what I mean? So like... And what happens is we have this sense of like, I'm being weak right now. Men, I think, have a real deal thing of that, of walking away from something like that. Like, I think it's really difficult for men to walk away. It's like, but I really admire, again, the men who can do that. Like, hey, this is not worth it. Like, dude, you're acting dumb. Like, see you later. I'm going to walk away.
But I'm a firm believer on like certain things too. Like when somebody is being disrespectful or needs to be called out, like I'm not afraid to do it.
Yeah.
And some people
need to get checked.
Perfect example. So I went out on a date a couple of weeks ago and we were upstairs at the bar ordering drinks and the bartender was completely trash wasted.
Ooh.
Super rude. Ignored us for probably about 5 to 10 minutes. And then she came up to my date and said...
The bartender was drunk? Where was this at?
It's at Blondie's.
Blondie's. Come on, get it together.
The girl upstairs was just... She was pouring drinks, wasn't measuring, like she was going through it. But she came up to my date and was like, what do you want? And I was like, do we have a problem? Because nobody twisted your arm to have you clock in for work today.
Right.
Just because you're drunk and you're a sloppy ass mess.
Right.
And I said something and immediately the guy was like, you don't have to do that. Clearly she's drunk. And I'm like, fuck no. Yeah. The customer service. You don't treat people like that. Yeah. And... probably about 3 to 4 minutes after I had said that to her, because I didn't yell, but she did come up and she apologized to me. She was like, I'm sorry, I'm drunk.
Wow.
Sometimes you need people to be like, nah, that's
and
not good.
I had a question that was given to me that said, okay, look, again, you have to figure out if it's worth it or not. Right. Because some of these relationships, it was like, do I want to bring this up to this person and say, hey, I didn't like this?
Right.
is this person important enough to me that I want to have this conversation? Or do I keep a backlog in my head and say, all right, cool. I'm going to keep you at arm's length right now. Right. And I know this is information. Okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like without sounding too prideful or without sounding like, you really do. You have to, if there's somebody that is close to me, then I better take responsibility. For me and myself, if you want a healthy relationship, if you want a healthy workplace, if you want a healthy friendship, if you want a healthy anything, you've got to take ownership. Yes. You've got to be able to say, I messed up. And you've got to be able to turn the other cheek, even if you know, talk about it, but then just say, you know what? Let's let this go. Like, you know what I mean? Yep. Even if it's, I agree to disagree, but I love you, so let's move on.
Ooh, dropping knowledge to me today. Whew, I don't want to. I want to sit in the mess a little bit.
That's a little Whitney. That's a little Whitney right there.
Bitch, you gonna feel this.
Sometimes we're caught up trying to defend ourselves in a matter that we can have no true comprehension of understanding. Have you heard the quote, most people do not listen without the intent to understand? Yes. Most people actually listen to the intent of the intent to reply.
Yes, to run their mouth instead of listening.
I have been guilty of that. I stop listening. Yep. I'm like, I'm not hearing you anymore. I'm ready to respond.
Right.
I'm ready to tell you what I have to say.
You're going to hear me.
And you really actually do tune them out. Yeah. Like you really can't hear anything else that they're saying. And so if you can teach yourself to be a good listener in these situations and let that go, that's a habit and it's a bad one.
It's bad and it's horrible. I don't know if anybody of our listeners watching, if you guys have been through this, please talk about it, because I can laugh at it now, but it was not funny then. But we did like a speaking activity with my marriage counselor, and she was just trying to get me to gauge how I listen to people.
Ooh.
And she did like this test where she said, a certain amount of things back. And she was like, now tell me what I said.
Oh, dang.
I was like, oh.
I like
She's
that.
Like, that's not what I said. That's what you heard.
Ooh.
But that's not what I said. And I was
like a telephone game, right? It's kind of like that. I mean, it's kind of like that, but it's also because we're like already thinking in our head. So many times when we're, we have conflict going on, something happens, we're arguing, we are so defensive that we stop listening and we're already thinking of the response that here's what I'm going to say.
And then you revert back to the pain and the nastiness on top of it. So you're not even really in the present moment.
No, you're not.
You're going back to 2 years ago when you're upset now.
Yes.
You're bringing that up as word vomit on top of everything else.
But Ecclesiastes 3:7 says that there's a time for everything. And there's a time to be still and there's a time to be quiet.
Ooh, that's hard.
And we have to remember that in those times that it's actually a person with knowledge and wisdom who can sustain themselves from responding and truly just listening to, listen to what the other person's saying. Yeah. I don't care what kind of relationship it's in. Yeah. If you can sustain yourself, I'm telling you right now, even I admire people. Like for me, it's an admiration thing because I know that I haven't yet conquered that. Like I haven't yet, and I'm not going to say master because I don't believe that we truly ever master anything, but we get better and we progress and we get really good. But I don't think that we master it because we can revert back. Yep. But I will say that I truly admire a person that listens intently and I can tell when somebody's not listening to me.
Yes.
I can tell when somebody's shut me out.
Black people say it all the time, but they're like, if you having a conversation with somebody and 5 minutes in, they keep telling you, that's crazy. That's crazy. I'm not listening to you.
That's so funny.
I'm not listening to you. That's
as
crazy.
You're saying that, I'm just like, there's times when I know that I say, and I know people know when I'm not listening to them. And I always tell them, like, and sometimes it is the justification is a little bit of an excuse. I'll be like, well, I have a pill for that. That's why. But there's just sometimes that I know, like, I've tuned them out and I'm really not listening. And so they'll be like, hey, I told you that. And I'm like, no, you didn't. It came up with Joe the other day where he was like, well, I told her this. And I was like, I don't remember that conversation at all. Like, I don't remember anything that he said, nowhere near that. So Joe, I apologize about that that conversation that you told me.
Joe is a really good person of holding you accountable in your conversation.
Oh my God,
Joe's like real fast.
Yeah, like he's no holds bar. Like he's like, hey, all right, no. Like I'm like, okay, well, calm down there, dude. Like as long as they can receive it, I'm okay if they give it.
Right.
Okay, as long as they can receive it, I'm okay if they give it. If you can't receive it, then you better not try to give it. Like, you better not, because I'm coming for you.
That's a scary side, yes.
Right? So, guys, we're talking about taking ownership. And the reason why we're talking about taking ownership, well, it's not even the reason, guys. Taking ownership is difficult. It's hard.
Yes.
So many of us don't do this in our everyday relationships. So many of us don't do this in our business. So many people don't do this in their friendships. And then they wonder why these relationships don't work, or they wonder why. And sometimes you just have to point all the fingers back at you and say, okay, what's the common denominator? And that is tough. When you can look at a situation and be like, okay, well, this, that, and then there's circle of things that are surrounding you. You got to look at the common denominator in that. You got to say, okay, like here's all these things. This is the common denominator, and take ownership for that. It's a humbling experience, but I believe through being humble, that so much more opens up to you.
You get taught such of a bigger lesson, and I feel like people see your authenticity and trust you more when you're coming off accountable.
Yes.
Like, I feel like even if the apology wasn't how I wanted it to sound, but I feel like you're being authentic and genuine with me, like, that's enough in itself.
What is being your true, authentic self? Before we go there, I just want to say my name is Leah. I am your host with Between the Sheets. Yes. I am a money-making manifesting queen. Like, I just lost it. We're halfway through this podcast, and we're trying something different here. But we are talking about taking ownership today, and we're kind of leading off to the last conversation that we had, breaking this down because it's such... I don't want to say heavy. It is heavy because so many people don't want to take ownership. Some people don't want to say it. So let's get a little bit more controversial here.
Right. Let's go. I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's go.
Let's get a little bit more in taking ownership, not only in relationships, but not only, okay, so what happens when, oh, God, what happens when, people are out on the streets and they're doing stupid shit. So they're playing stupid games and they're getting stupid prizes. Right. And yet we don't want to allow those people to take ownership. So I want to get your thoughts on George Foreman. I mean, not George Floyd.
I'm like, George Foreman.
Foreman. I want to get your thoughts, Whitney.
I love his grill.
On George Floyd. I want to know what you thought about the whole situation.
Okay, and just to clarify, to make sure we're speaking about this is the man that was killed in the convenience store and all that in the back
outside
in the car, in the paddy wagon.
Well, on the concrete.
Yes.
With the knee on the neck.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. I think he was probably not living the best life. Mm-hmm. I think he was very much probably somewhere in between that gray 50% area in the wrong. Mm-hmm. But I also think that there needs to be accountability. There has to be accountability on both sides.
Yeah.
However, with that being said, when somebody, and this is just my opinion, it doesn't mean I'm here to piss anybody off, but when you take an ownership responsibility of a career as a police officer, you are held to a higher standard. It's no different than a pastor and him leading his congregation to a governor or whatever. You took on that role, so you're now up a little bit higher than where George was, in my opinion. So there should have been some type of sense in that chaos, that putting your knee on somebody's neck is not an appropriate way to apprehend somebody.
Agreed.
Not at all.
I wanted to get your opinion on that. I really wanted your true, authentic opinion on that because I agree 100% that the way that man died was insane. That was to hear him breathing the way he was, to hear, and so that one I agree with. Now, let's talk about somebody who has a gun on the streets. Okay. And how many of these, black individuals, let's talk about that, okay, because it's a real deal thing, that have a gun on the street and they get killed. Do people, are people taking responsibility for it and saying, okay, yeah, that was wrong, or, oh, there's just another kid shot dead in the street?
Right. I think, again, in this same situation, it's another thing where accountability is on both sides.
Yeah.
However, if we're going to take it back to, some other situations or scenarios that happened, the little boy that was shot and killed, Andrew Zimmerman, or however you say his damn name, that's a child. You're an adult. Just because he looked suspicious and he was running is not just cause for a security guard that's allowed to open and carry to shoot and kill a child.
Yep.
And not to mention he was running in the opposite direction, so he was running away from him, not to him. So,
and the argument with that is that they had a gun, and so they're stopping trouble from happening.
So what was Trayvon's accountability? Because he had a drink and a candy bar in his pocket, and somebody racially profiled him and got in their feelings? No, it's not okay.
Right.
So who's going to take accountability for that?
Let's go deeper. So let's talk about moms that are on welfare and that are spending government dollars and still have time to get their hair done, their nails done, nice purse, nice car.
Ugh, this topic really pisses me off. Only from the aspect of I am not a mother. I would love to be one day if I get the opportunity to, but it's just me. I'm a single person, and I can say, and if you guys want to chime in on the comments, please feel free to. But, over these last couple of years with this pandemic, granted, yes, everybody was deserving of the money I think that they received from the government. However, I've just seen people use it really frivolously, taking the opportunity for taking it in advantage and not, doing anything constructive with it. Could I have made better decisions during the pandemic to save money? Absolutely. I'm not taking my own accountability out of it. However, I don't understand how basically, single moms, for the most part, in certain levels, are being rewarded for having kids financially. And I'm just going to say it. So you probably are going to agree differently with me. And I know that there's certain scenarios where, these women are getting the help that they need. But I bust my ass and I want $100 for food stamps. Like, why am I getting denied for something that is my American right?
Yeah.
But
because you don't have a kid.
Because I don't have a kid and I'm working too many hours. So I'm still broke, but
yeah, that's such a good topic because you are a person that's like trying to go out after yours, get yours working, but now you make too much and you don't have a kid, so we're going to penalize you for that. But if you have a kid and you don't work as much, then we're going to give you money.
Yeah.
Woo, okay, that's a totally different conversation, by the way. That's a totally different, we'll bring Brian on for that one. Yes. No, I don't think we will. Brian, we love you, but yes.
I love you, Brian.
What I'm asking in these scenarios is how many of those people do you think will actually ever take responsibility and say, you know what? I'm not doing what I need to do. I could probably work a little bit harder. Right. I could probably get a second job. Right. I could probably take the bus. I could probably Uber. I could probably find a babysitter. I could probably find a part-time job and take responsibility
and I feel like
for their actions.
Actions are taking accountability too.
Yes.
If you're in a and I'm just going to go into mine because we just spoke about it and how I wanted help with assistance. But, I'm in my late 30s trying to start over from this divorce. Everything was taken from me financially. Nothing was left to my name. So I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And I'm busting my ass. Like I'm not just working one job part-time and not doing anything else. Any type of way I can make money, I'm going to figure out how to do it.
You started your OnlyFans? Folks, find Whitney on.
I cannot use those photos. You did not release them to me.
Yes, I did.
I'm joking. But, that's a conversation we were just having with the girlfriends. Like, look at the day and age we live in now where some women are out here actually entertaining the idea of starting an OnlyFans to make money. And these women are agreeing to, and to each his own. I'm not judging. If my feet probably were a little bit better, I'd probably do it too. But
feet fetish, guys.
Who's gonna know that that's your foot unless you have a tattoo or something on it, or somebody knows that area specifically? Like, who's gonna know?
Yes.
Who's gonna know? So it's crazy what people are willing to do.
And I think that some people are just making a justification to do stuff like that to show themselves and show their ass. When really, do you really need that money that bad? If you do, then by all means, do what you got to do.
But then I get.
But if you're portraying that you're doing actually pretty well, and you're, and you're still doing it, then I'm going to really question your character.
One of the girls was over at the house talking to one of the other girlfriends that I lived with, and they were talking about this woman and how on the 1st and the 15th of every month she goes and gets her check cashed.
What does a hood chick always have?
And she's.
What does a hood chick always have?
I'm afraid to ask.
I'm just asking. I want to know what the opinion is. You guys tell me on the comments, what does a hood chick always have?
A gun.
Her nails did.
Her nails, yes. But no, this woman would go on the 1st and the 15th and pull this money out, and she would like make these video recordings on, I don't know, TikTok or Snapchat about, and then she'll post underneath it, oh, I had such a good work day today. Today was such a good money day. And it's the check that she's getting the 1st and the 15th is from her ex-husband. Like, it's not even anything that she's working for.
Wow.
But she's so hell-bent set on keeping this image up of, oh, today was a really good money day. Yeah, because you're getting paid by your ex. Like, I bet the 1st and the 15th of every month is real nice.
You know, and people will get content with that. So that we're talking about all things ownership because it's so open. And I think we're always asking each other like, well, how vague or how big or are we going to zone in on this? But taking ownership from relationships, friendships, workplace, taking ownership in your own bullshit that you're complaining about and you're saying I don't have and I'm so broke and yet you still have money for other things.
Yes.
Taking ownership in I want my business to grow, but man, I don't want to make videos. And I'm not talking about OnlyFans videos. I'm talking about I don't want to do the work. You know what I mean? Guilty in some of these areas where we can come up with some bull ass excuses all the time and not take ownership.
Well, and I think ownership is a lot to play with. This is a whole different conversation, but it's a generational thing where our accountability and ownership may not be the same as this, you know, young work career field people that are out right now. Everybody's opinion on it is different. So if you're coming at it from a level of negative thought process.
At the end of the day, it's like, what did your parents teach you? Like, did you grow up with like, hey, I'm wrong? And I hate to say this, but I was thinking about this the other day and this is a reflection, but at the same time, I know that I'm very quick to say, you know what, I apologize. I'm sorry. I think anybody that knows me knows that there's a time where I'm like, hey, let's talk. Did I do something wrong? I'm sorry. Did I offend you? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to just say it to say it's because these relationships I care about. However, what I noticed in my own family is that there's not a whole lot of accountability and a humbleness of I'm sorry.
Right.
And that really bugs me because it's like, don't always defend your actions.
Right.
You're not always right. You're not the master. You don't you know what I mean? You gotta say, hey, look, I messed up. You and I talked about it the other day and we were talking about, situation mothers and things of that nature. You know, it's like, okay, well, if I have the opportunity to sit down with somebody financially, so I was listening to something and it was about Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And the gentleman said, the author of the book said, I started to listen to all of the people that were around me that were broke.
Yes.
He said, and they're always saying, I'm broke. I can't afford that.
Right.
I can't afford that. I can't go. I can't. He said, so many of the people that I know that are broke say I can't a lot.
Yeah. And
I was like, wow. You know what I mean? I don't want to be that person. Yeah. So many of the people that are doing things are going to say, I'm not doing it now, but I'm going to find a way.
Right.
You know, and I think that there's really a different mentality, a mindset there. I'm not doing it now, but I'm going to find a way. I'm going to figure out how to.
You're not completely shutting it down.
Right. And so in that as well. So when we talk about taking ownership, we revert back a little bit to say, you first have to recognize what kind of person you are. Are you a person that says, I'm broke, I can't, I won't, I haven't, it's not for me. It's, all of these things. Yes. Yeah. All of these things. Are you a person that's going to say, yep, that's me. Yep. I recognize, wow, I need to change, and have some humbleness in that, in all aspects. Okay. So one thing that I'm a stickler on, and it's because I know that I'm good at it, is finances. It's just one thing that I say, hey, let's sit down, let's look over everything because I can show you areas in your life where maybe I can help. You know what I mean? But let's look at that as a whole and say, okay, so whether it's in a relationship, okay, here's A, B, C, and D that led to E. Okay. Right. How much of A and B did I have a part of? Exactly. How much did C and D did I have a part of? How much do you, and let's communicate. Again, taking it back to, is this relationship important enough for me to spend my energy?
Right.
Or am I like, okay, this is just taking way too much energy. I just don't even want to waste my time on it. I'm going to be done with it. Same thing, work, you know, work wise, you guys, there's horrible workplaces. There's really horrible workplaces that you may just determine that no matter what you do, some people just won't change. So your boss may not change, your husband may not change, your wife may not change, your friend may not change. They may just be dead set in their ways. I think that is sometimes also a little bit more generational. Like I have, you know, people, aunts and uncles that are just like, that's it. There's you don't get to tell me anything. I know all. And that's end all. Those people can't be taught. Those people can't learn. Like
they're stuck. Stagnant.
And if they can't identify, there's nothing, there's that relationship's going to be really, really hard to work through. Really difficult to work through. So ask yourself what kind of person you are. Ask yourself, what's your part? Ask yourself, is the relationship worth it? Ask yourself even further, is this how I want to be treated? Is this how I want to, you know, take on all of these things? I think those will allow us to identify, be aware of like, okay, where do we need to take more ownership in our life? And practice, guys, for a week. If you can, practice for the next 2 weeks in saying things.
And it's hard. Don't give up.
Oh, I mean, it is. I'm preaching to the choir here. The next time that my husband's going to watch this podcast. But, you know, I'm going to try to just swallow my pride. And because I love him so much and because I know that I want this, you know, our marriage to work and things of that nature, is to not react and to say, you know what, babe, you're right. Okay, maybe it's not you're right. Maybe it's, you know what, I agree to disagree, but I love you, so let's move on. Because we liked that one, right?
You know what? But I've had a lot of people be like, no, they get angry at let's just agree to disagree.
Oh, God, it could piss more people off. Oh, my God. They want to argue. Right, they want to argue. That's another.
I'm like, can't we just agree to disagree?
That's another hard relationship, is people that just love to argue. Go be a lawyer, dude. Go argue with somebody who wants to argue with you. Stop arguing with everybody for the sake of arguing.
I do like arguing, though. I don't know why. It's toxic behavior.
But it's routine. My son likes to argue. He loves to argue. It's just
the back and forth banter, and I was raised that way too.
So can I talk to you about that? Yes. There's something that's called negative intimacy.
Yes.
That as long as I'm communicating with you in a way, even if it's negative, it's still intimacy, so it's going to feel good to me.
Yes.
That's something to consider highly. Like when you're thinking about these conversations. He's making me really nervous. Arlo's in the room now, walking over all of the cards. Our mascot is in the room.
You better not fart.
Or knock over the camera. But that it's called negative intimacy. So even if you are not communicating with me in a positive manner, it's negative. You're still communicating with me, and therefore I'm going to continue it. And it's a very toxic type of talk. Communication. It's very toxic.
And some people are used to it, and it's a part of their routine. It's like it's embedded in their being of who they are. They can't
This is the best way to get communication out of you, so this is what I'm going to do. You guys got to start to identify, think about those things. Where can you get better? Where can you hold yourself accountable? Practice this week, if you can, just to stop an argument.
Put some accountability, like quotes on a sticky note and put them on your mirror. And force yourself to say them. I'm going to hold myself accountable for this today.
Yes, and just try it for 1 week. How many arguments can you stop this week by just saying, you know what, that's right. I love you. Let's move on. You know, however you want to say it is up to you. But
she don't want to say I'm wrong.
Most of the time I'm not. No, you know, I think it's a really good exercise. So next podcast too, I just want to kind of give you guys an update and say that we are going to be talking about double standards.
Double standards.
What is a double standard? You know, we saw a really good meme. Chris put it up earlier of a man and a woman shirtless. And he's out, you know, and he's like, yeah, balls to the wall. It's hot as hell is here. And then the woman's shirtless and she's saying the same thing, but that's not acceptable. Okay. How about, what was the other one, Chris? There was another one that you know what it was is the dad was taking his kids out to go get some fast food. And it was like, yay, fun, Dad.
Dad, we're going to go out
And Mom was taking the kids out to go get fast food. And
she's lazy.
She's a lazy mom. So these are what double standards are. And we're going to kind of dive deep into those because those all have effects on a relationship. So many of us have double standards that we're willing to, and that's a narcissistic behavior as well, is that I can see what you do wrong. Even though I do that, I'm going to show you that you do it wrong and I'm going to convince you that you're doing it wrong, but it's okay for me. Yeah. Right? So we're going to get really deep into that. Yes. We want to hear about your narcissistic /
because we all got some of it. So stop it.
We want to hear about how have these double standards had an effect on your life. Let us know ahead of time, because if it's something that we could talk about ahead of time, we'll bring it into the conversation. You want us to give you a call? Guess what? We could call you. Let's do this really quick.
We can call you.
Who should we call? We want to try to call Dana really quick? Yes. All right, we're going to call Dana Keith really quick. Hold on. Let's just see what happens. So Dana was supposed to have been on the podcast. Tomorrow we were going to record again, and he was supposed to be on the podcast with us. And of course, Dana is too busy. And so he canceled on us, and I'm going to see if he's going to take ownership right now.
Hello?
Dana Keith.
Hello, Leopold.
Hey, how are you?
Doing good.
Hey, I have a question for you really quick. I heard that you were canceling the podcast tomorrow. And I just wanted to know your reason why.
My son is sick this week.
Oh, okay. You know what? That's totally different. Say hi to the listeners, by the way. You're on the podcast. For reals.
Say hi, Chico.
Hi.
Hi, baby. Hi, Kaleo. You don't feel good, love?
Tell him.
Baby doesn't feel good? That's his words. That's how he feels.
Poor baby.
Yeah.
You're not a baby.
Right. You are right.
You guys, that's Kaleo. That is Dana Key's son, who we love. He's such a freaking cutie pie.
He's the first kid on the podcast.
He's the first kid on the podcast, Dana Key.
Here we are coughing in his face.
And he's coughing and he's like, okay, you know what, Dana? That was not a good example. We are talking about taking ownership today. And so I just wanted to find out if you were possibly going to take ownership.
If I was bullshitting or not.
Yeah.
Yes, I really have my sense.
Now I look like a ding dong. So thanks for that.
Love y'all.
Love you. And hey, you're this is gonna be cool. You get to hear yourself back on the podcast, your voice. This is like dope. We can do this. So
in due time.
Yep. Love you, mean it. And all right, you're good to go.
Y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was embarrassing. So Dana, we apologize. His son is sick, so that's why he canceled. I was gonna see if he was gonna come up with some bullshit that's excuse, but I guess it didn't happen. So anyways, next time we're going to be talking about double standards, and we're going to really be hitting hard on that. Let us know your thoughts. How did you like this podcast?
Please.
Do you like Whitney on the couch? Doesn't she look good under the neon light? On the couch. She should be. From this point on, Whitney will be on the couch with me. Yes. I'm just going to make that known because, this was the podcast. Yeah. This was the podcast. Yes. This was the idea. Yes. And I'm going to give some shout out to Chris because,
shout out to Chris.
I am going to say that I always had the idea of a podcast in mind. I always did. And if I could find the post that I actually had bought a really, really cheap mic and I put like a picture because I thought I was going to do it at that time, even though I didn't. I put up a picture and was like, pretending like Instagramming it up, like, watch out, something's coming. And then I did nothing. And then, years later, I met Chris, Chris comes in, whatever. And I start telling him about this and he starts saying, we need a podcast. And then he was the one that really pushed me to do it. So shout out to Chris. First episode, second episode, possibly. And then there's a couple episodes in where we interview Chris as well. Yes. You get to know him, but he was the one that really pushed me to do the podcast more. So appreciate you. And, Dana Keith was with us and we'll be bringing him back every once in a while as a guest host. Sammy Black, she's been with us and we're going to be bringing her back as a guest host. But what we're really going to do is really try to hone in on some conversations, do this more often between you and I, and then bring in our guest host, for specific topics and also possibly specialists as well.
Right. No, and I agree. That way we can give facts, knowledge, and opinion.
Not just our own opinion.
Yes, even though,
we're pretty much right. Right. You guys, that's it for this time. And we are out. Come on, girl. Come on.
Between the sheets.